So Jill, you were just talking about at one of your previous positions, how you were using podcasts to break into the high priority prospects, right? The ones that we haven't cracked the code, haven't gotten the conversation started with. And tell me a little bit about what happened there.
Yeah. So it's funny. So I said, hey, I think we should do a podcast. I had done a podcast in my previous company, and it had gone pretty well. Let's give it a try. So I went out and I started looking through our high priority targets that we maybe hadn't talked to before. And I came up with a couple themes that we wanted to touch upon, and the information that we got from that was pretty incredible, right? We were finding out how they're changing their operating procedures. We're finding out how they're dealing with patients. We're finding out how they're managing to keep their trials going. It was a clinical trial company. And, our sales team was able to then pick up on that information. I would write all the questions out ahead of time. I would share it with the prospect. Most of the time after the podcast had recorded and, it went live and it was getting a bunch of traction and reactions. Well, these customers were like, hey, we're willing to do that again or something else. And, cause it's helping them too. It's promoting not only the person, but their company. And they like that. Now because I'm in a highly regulated industry, the other option that I would give them is, okay, so, join this podcast and they would be like, I don't know if my company will let me. All right, well, you can do a disclaimer. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, just come on and say these are my own opinions and they do not reflect the opinion of XYZ company. And they're like, okay. But they got them talking and it was, here's how we're doing things. And here's what I think is going to happen. And here's the future. And it was a phenomenal podcast. And we got so much positive feedback. I mean, we had thousands of listens in the first week and we did, I think 12 episodes. So we, and then we started to kind of dive into diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I met some of the most incredible people that I still talk to today. Some patient advocates that were, they're instrumental in kind of making introductions for companies and advocates are becoming more and more leveraged by sponsors. So it's a win-win. It is a very effective way to continue a conversation. And it's also a very effective way to start a conversation and a lead into a company because people like talking about themselves and people like hearing about their peers. So you're going to get the talker and you're going to get the people who are like, well, what do they have to say? I want to know what they're talking about. And you really can't lose. So I think it's a great tool. I love podcasts.
What you're talking about is a very uncommon use of the creation of thought leadership content for direct sales purposes. Prospects or customers, prospects that are in the pipeline that need moving along, customers that you can land and expand, cold prospects that you've wanted to get into, you haven't been able to. But this dynamic of people love to be on podcasts and you put them up on a stage, right? And they have something to say that's important in front of all their peers in that ICP. The relationship that you create and the sales opportunity that you accelerate is amazing because you brought them onto this podcast and you can do it every week. You can do it on a regular basis.
And they don't have to do a tremendous amount of preparation for it because it's just a conversation. There's no slideware. There's no, time. It's like, okay, your 20 minutes are up. We got to shut it down. I mean, it's not a webinar. There's not a live audience there asking you questions, making you nervous. You're just having a conversation, just like we are. This is a podcast, obviously, but it's conversational. It's more human. I think it's a human interaction and people respond really well to that.
Well, thank you very much. It's very little known that the podcasts can actually be great thought leadership because there's a never-ending supply of thought leaders in your prospects, in your customers. That should be the majority, but also that you can just really efficiently scale your thought leadership production, which is one of the most difficult things that a company can do. And at the same time, you learn every single week. And if done right, that can be an internal learning program for your company and everybody in sales and marketing and customer success. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Oh, you're welcome.